appreciate you. Like, it's funny. It's funny how you platform the I don't tell you much, Clef, but I'm about to tell you something that I didn't think I would ever tell you. I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean. So I say there's probably a trust and growth on both sides of that fence. It's kind of in that same thing, like your thing on the polo, and you could probably call mine out too. And you've called yourself out on this. Um, okay, I gotta go. Oh wait, one more thing. And whatever that thing is, you say you have something like that, right? I feel like that's almost like the one of the things that's falling into that is the setup of when you mention like, yeah, I don't tell you much, but I'm gonna tell you a thing, but I think I can tell you this thing because we're friends. And I'm just like, okay, like it's almost like a mantra. It feels a little bit like a mantra. I think it's also a remember where we are, Clef. I think it's also just it's a notation of intimacy, as in like this friendship means something. So I'm about to just remind you that what I'm sharing with you is not based on anything other than the fact that we have trust and we've built this connection. I get that. There's also that element of it. Um, but I tend to draw a little bit less, just a little bit less. I'm listening a little bit more whenever you set those things up. I sort of have a pause in my sort of like, because I do understand like when something like that is shared, I think it's fine to sort of say, here's something that I don't know if I'm entirely comfortable, but I feel compelled to share. I dig that. I dig that. So thank you for that.
No problem. And what I want to say is it it's interesting as we journey through life that we have those signposts along the way. Because like I was telling you on the on-ramp, I'll go into a school and I'll see someone that I used to work with many years ago. And I remember some of the great conversations I've had with the people I've worked with along the way. And to then one of two things happen. Either we engage in conversation like no time has passed, or we don't engage in conversation and we honor, hey, a lot of time has passed. And it's like, from my perspective, I try to honor the conversations that we've had that we're not going to have anymore. Um, some it's been weird lately. Those experiences have been weird lately for me. Or I'll walk into a building and somebody will just look and they're like, "Is that Roland? What are you doing?" And it's like I got to give them the Reader's Digest version of my job, right? Like, oh, I'm now a teacher that moves from school to school and works with a certain population of kids. That's all I can kind of say at the moment in front of everybody else. And then other times I see people I worked with and they look at me like they have no idea who I am. And I used to be offended by that, but I'm not anymore because I'm now walking into schools where I see people that look familiar and I can't remember their name and I can't remember which school I worked with them at because it was not, they don't register on my radar for whatever reason. I used to be offended. I'm not offended anymore. I'm literally wide open to whatever's going to come my way. Wide open. Um, Today's on ramp was like insanely reflective, in my opinion. And well, we were like 40 minutes, 38 minutes over the on ramp.
It's funny, my head was down as you said that, and I actually wondered there was something about the tone of your voice. I'm like, I wonder if he hit the record. And then I looked up and I could see the red little box there. I'd see we've been live for 4 minutes. I'm like, damn, did I swear? I don't think I swore.
You didn't swear.
I didn't swear. Okay. I swear I didn't swear.
But even if you did, I don't care. Other people might, but I don't.
Other people might. Yep.
So,
Actually, I think with sure other people would. Other people would. We're still employed, so we know that brand must be maintained.
we're still employed. Is that
Still employed.
like the litmus test for this podcast?
I think that's one of them. It has to be one of them, right? Like we both know the implications if we go out of our lane, that lane of expectation. We have enough individuals. We have enough individuals that could hear our content, and I don't know if they're all friendlies. I don't know if they would sort of keep the open secret that I said shit on a podcast, that word. I don't know how that would be reframed. This falls into that funny headspace of who am I? Am I just Chris right now? Am I teacher Chris right now? Am I artist Chris right now? Um, and part of our governing bodies would say, you're all of those things, son. Enjoy. Enjoy. And we had that conversation with a colleague of ours about having one of their tweets kind of forwarded through some spaces, and somebody felt they had to have a conversation about a tweet. I would say the tweet in itself was not provocative in the least, and I'm using a whole array of assessment tools here, from measuring it against what other stuff is posted, measured against like posted in general, tweets in general, tweets about the topic that they tweeted about, um, and just the general, let's say, measured according to code of conduct, OCT, union, school rules. In a lot of ways, that was just somebody not liking and doing a little power flex and saying, hey, friend of a friend of a friend, could you have a conversation about this topic? And people that listen to podcasts, not all of them are listening because they want to, you know, nod and have thoughtful, like, wow, that's a poignant, really important piece of content that Clough put up. So keeping the job, I will say that me keeping my job and podcasting, what's it been now, a decade? That's mind blowing. You even longer. But like podcasting for a decade, I'm still working. And I feel like I haven't sort of pulled up too much on the topics that we've talked about. What I do know for sure is that individuals, that it is one of those, if you know, you know. So people listening to our content, I think we get close enough to the experiences, just our individual experiences, that people kind of go, whoa, yeah, yeah. I think I know. I don't even need to know who or what they're talking about, because that's automatically like pinging off my experience. Like that's automatically lighting me up about something I went through. So they don't even need to think about us. We're just like the gate to their own experience, which I love that. Like that's kind of like that's what I crave in any conversation, really, is that I can sort of help open somebody else up to their own thinking. Is that the teacher brand? That's the teacher brand, right? But we still keep our jobs, so that's good.
We have our jobs, and I want to tell a story about our jobs, if that's okay with you.
I'm settling in.
You're settling in. I'm gonna
Yeah.
channel Aldo.
Do
Uh,
it. Do
I'm
it.
gonna channel Aldo.
Aldo B. Props to Aldo B out there.
Aldo B, who is a member. He is a teacher in Ontario. He's also a member of the book club for men. I can call Aldo a friend. He's a really good dude, in my opinion. And he on the book club for men, he tells us stories, and I've kind of branded him as the storyteller. He's just a good storyteller, and he's got a lot of great stories, a lot of great experiences. So I'm going to channel some of that. And this is about the work teachers do, but also it is a for me it's a great story about one of my students really caring about me not getting into trouble, and also not getting himself into trouble, which the whole thing makes me laugh. So yesterday I'm meeting with one of my students, and we're chatting, and um I was as we were walking down the hallway to go to the place where we chat, I saw another teacher, and I made a comment about the other teacher. Positive, like I just said, I said something funny. It was a nerdy joke, and the teacher and I had some banter back and forth as the student and I are walking. And then after we passed that teacher, the student says to me, "Whoa, Mr. C, like I've never seen that side of you." I'm like, What side? He goes, like you were talking, like you were joking with another teacher about, we were talking about Star Trek. So I was getting kind of nerdy, right? He's like, I've never seen that side of you. I said, there are many sides to many people. And he was just totally thrown back. Like he was like, you joke, you watch TV. I'm like, bro, I joke with you all the time. We talk about TV all the time. Like, I didn't get it. So we're walking and talking, and I say to him, well, what's a TV show that, or what's something you watch? Because it's not totally TV anymore, right? Like it's YouTube, it's all kinds of things now that people consume. I said, what is it that you kind of take in that you enjoy, that people your age like these days? So he tells me about this TV show, okay? And I was dying laughing because he was trying to explain to me something explicit, sexual, like I don't mean it like it's a TV show. It's meant for adults, but this kid's watching it, like most kids do. And he's trying to explain it to me without talking about all the negatives of this show, which is part of what makes the show funny, unfortunately. Okay. So I'm like, just spit it out. Goes, well, I really like it. It's funny, but it's like offside in this regard and that regard. And he's going on and on and on. So I said to him, okay, I'm going to check it out. He's like, Mr. C. He's like, Mr. C. I'm like, what? I said to him, I'm an adult. You're telling me it's made for adults. He's like, yeah, but Mr. C. He's all concerned. I'm like, okay, let's stop talking about this. You appear concerned. He's like, well, I don't want you to get into trouble. And I'm like, I'm gonna get in trouble for watching television? Where do I find this show? He goes, Netflix. I'm like, I have Netflix. I'm an adult. And he's just looking at me like something turned on in his brain. He's like, you are an adult. But he's like, there's something about this conversation we're having that seems wrong. I'm like, what is wrong? And he's like, basically, I'm telling you that I watch a show that you might think I shouldn't watch because I'm in grade 8 and it's meant for adults. I looked at him, I said, "Okay, kid, I have a son in grade 7 and a son in grade 11. You don't think I've been exposed to any of this stuff? So you think you're the only student I work with that enjoys that type of thing?" And he's just looking at me, he smiles. He goes, "No, I guess not." I said, let me decide what's good for me, just like I try not to tell you what's good for you, even though that's my whole job, right? To try to get them to do the right thing at school or whatever. So last night I'm out with my one son. We come home a little late. I'm having dinner a little late. I sit in front of the TV and I'm like, I'm gonna check out this show. I start the show and like instantly, like from second number one, this show is offside. Now I'm laughing, I'm enjoying myself, but I'm thinking like, holy cow, we got kids watching this content. It really isn't for kids. It's hilarious and offside for me. So what is this? What are these kids getting from this as they watch it? Anyway, long story short, I'm debating whether I tell him next week that I watched an episode. I'm not sure how I want to take this. I think if organically we get there, great. I don't think I need to start with, hey, I watched that show on Friday night. So um, there's my story about like, I'm still employed. I've not done anything wrong, even though this kid's telling me about this show that is like, it's offside. But teachers and students have all kinds of back and forths. The conversation I had with him is not anything that would appear on the radar, which would jeopardize my work or my employment. But, but I would argue that for me to build a relationship with the students I'm working with, there needs to be, I can't, I can't be straight laced and by the book 100% of the time as I listen to their stories and interact with them. And even saying that feels weird because it sounds like I'm totally offside and stuff. I'm not. I'm just being real with these kids. And an example of that is as we're walking and talking, teachers are looking at us funny because they're like, "Oh, Chidiac's working with that kid." And I'm like, even that alone bothers me. It's like we all work with every kid in the building, but they know, oh, if Chidiac's here with that kid, that means that there's something not going right. I'm like, we're having the best conversation. The kid's at school where he's supposed to be, and I'm checking in, whatever. So as we're talking, he tells me about another kid in his class. And I'm like, well, let's go back upstairs and pull him out of class and engage him in conversation. So now I'm upstairs with the second kid, and now everybody's like, oh, Chidiac works with those two kids. And to them, it's so like I'm living in a desolate place. To me, I see it as living in the best place that I can have these two kids who are rough and tough and perceived to be offside 24/7, and I'm engaging with them in great conversation at the school where they usually don't want to be. It's like this is for me it's paradise, and for everybody else it's hell. Um Somebody's got a journey with these kids, and if you're not open to their journey, I think that's a fundamental problem in the work that we do.
I've had similar experiences. Uh, Part of the shape that I dig in that moment is I have students. So because of the small spaces that I work in, I get really close. We get close. Other students have said, in our crew, said a couple times it feels like family. And you know that feeling of family where um where you clearly identify who's not family. And there is a moment there. So I'll give some shape to that. There's students, so um there's students that come and visit me. I would say on a fairly regular basis. They'll just show up at the door, and each one of them there's a different kind of banter. Some of it's a little bit more therapeutic and spec ed. Um, Sometimes it's just plain friendly, like, hey, how you doing? Just, it's not even the I want to say hello to you. It's just they show up and say hello. Um, the crew that I work with almost every single time at some point will say, who is that? Right. And it's the them not knowing about the other. They just don't know who these people are that are showing up. Like from their perspective, um, the only people I know are them because we spend so much time together. Like they don't have a sense of my roots or my networked. They don't. I mean, even in that moment, it's almost like are you even recognizing that you young student in my crew have a whole lot of people that I don't know. They're just acknowledging in that moment. Like, for example, if I saw them standing with someone I didn't know, I wouldn't go up to them and like, "Who is that student?" Like, you don't do that as you sort of grow older and kind of recognize that everyone has a lot of different relationships in the world. And sometimes my students will even be so bold as to suggest the zero sum nature of it. Like somehow by me knowing this other person that, what about us? Why aren't you doing that with me? Because some of the kids I'll tell dad jokes to, some of the kids it's about math help, like these visitors that show up on my doorstep. One of the things that I've really come to love is um because I show that care, I don't know, that love of teens, that openness. Remember how Hurley, used to brand himself. I don't know if he still does, but as that catalyst, right? That catalyst and connector. I've become more and more aware of how me as a person, I'm able to catalyze and connect individuals that may have never met. And that's one of the really, I think, as I as the the certain stage, well, not I'm being really abstract. Now after teaching for whatever since 2004, I'm less interested. I'm far less interested in how about my relationships with students. And it's not that it is important. It's not the focus. It's not the central focus of my presence in school. It's looking how students relate to each other. And I think back to how voice ed sort of made connections between many, at first a few, then many disparate podcasters. Like it created like the MCU, like this connected universe of podcasters. Like we weren't all just in our basements having individual experiences. We were individuals that were having common experiences, and collectively we were all giving different perspectives about EDU, which and everybody's story was correct. I mean, you just kind of have to accept that, whether you like it or not. So, what Hurley was able to do there was kind of say, because I'm willing to kind of go and meet a bunch of different random people, and you can look at voice ed and like look at where it started and look at like how diverse to a degree the offerings I don't know. Where's voice ed now? I don't know. You'd have to update me on that. I know they're going to like a co-op collective model. Maybe you got something to mention on that. We'll see. But like I think about that point of view is how do I do that for students? How can I be a catalyst so students can meet other students that otherwise may never build relationships with diverse individuals? So, your moment of connection with those students walking through the hall, what I have become hyper aware of is how does my presence set the seeds in motion so that other kids that wouldn't normally connect with some of my kids and vice versa, how can I do more of that? And I have had this year a couple moments where, I've come around a corner. I'm like, oh my God, there's one of my students talking with one of the kids that just shows up at my doorstep and says hello. And I think to myself, there it is. There it is. There's the thing that I want. I want this brand new grade 9 student to be able to have as good of a conversation or a connection moment with that random older student that I connected with. It sort of creates this weird sense of harmony, synchronicity, that the vibe and the framework and the intention that I have is actually growing at my school. And I take a lot of happiness from that. I take a lot of happiness from that. Just this week, the day before, we had our snow day. I think many jurisdictions had snow days. On two occasions, students from my current crew were talking with students from former crews. I was like, that's cool. Because they're in different grades. Like I'm the vector, or my classroom was the vector. And now they're sort of connecting. And even if nothing else happens other than that one conversation, I feel like that's my mandate. How do I create that specifically, that concretely, that clearly? I want to play a part in connecting students that way. And it's very different. I think it's a very different I think there's a very different toolkit to build collective connection than it is to just be the teacher that is really great with kids. Like I almost take that as that's a 1.0. That's a 1.0. If you can be the teacher, the educator, the human in a school that actually is able to connect kids with each other and to be known for that. I've never heard that. I've never actually heard that kind of framing about a teacher. That teacher's awesome. Like you'll hear stuff that teacher's awesome. They always have clubs. They always have da, da, da. That teacher's awesome. They're the greatest coach ever. that teacher's awesome because they help kids give themselves permission to connect with other kids. That teacher's awesome because they um, created spaces where kids actually grew together with each other and forward. To say that specifically, I like that. I like that. And I don't know, I'm not setting up my own shingles here as far as what I do, but I think in the last year my perspective has changed from, because we do a lot, there's a lot of training that we get about, are you making authentic and respectful, culturally appropriate relationships with your equitable relationships with your students? And this whole idea of having them do that with other people feels a little abstract. Like you just hope that the example is, you make it to the midterm and you say to the kid sitting in the front of the class and the kid in the back of the class, you're like, do you know each other's names? Like, no. Like that's not the classroom. I don't ever want to be in a classroom like that. I don't ever want to be in a classroom like that, where I am the vector between the two opposite corners of the classroom for a whole school year. So, and this goes beyond group work. This goes beyond collaboration. Connectivity is something different. It's like on another level. I feel like it's another level.
I really like that idea of the teacher and the way that they connect the collective. I've never thought of it that way, but I do like it. I like the idea. Rochelle says that it's very thought provoking, and she talks about it building community. Um, I will tell you that what you're saying is like the complete other side of what I do. I'm not doing that at all. Um, but that's not my context, right? I'm working one on one with kids. I'm not. It's very cool to think about that. Um, growing community, not building. Thank you, Chris. Growing community, not building community, growing it.
I think that 1.0 language would be we use words like building and capacity. You ever say that at home with your family? You ever say that with your friends? You ever say that with people that are actually important to you and have impact with you? I'm channeling a little bit of Stutz here, right? Those higher forces. I'll admit it. I think I am. I'm infected by the book club book, right? But he talks about that. That's like the first thing, like connecting to these higher forces, these things that, I mean, you can make them faith-based or you can just make them metaphysical. That one true, what is it? The forward momentum force that you sort of like life moves forward. We talked a little bit about the on-ramp and how the universe doesn't actually care about you, but it does need you to grow, consume, and die and rot and move on. Like we're a component of it. And whether that makes us feel good or bad, it's a fact. So I think that I'm starting to get just a little bit of cringe on the word build,
Mm.
only because it often is connected with the word capacity. And that's off. That feels very bureaucratic to me. I'm gonna put us directly in a transitional stage. That the less we use bureaucratic, I kind of said this. I said this before in another time, another place. Man, there's a lot of words in education that sound like we're running a business. A lot of technical terms that make it sound mechanical and industrial. I think it was at the same heads meeting where one of the heads I've actually mentioned to you this guy Andy McClure, and he's one of my he's one of my mentors, man. Like navigated the way that he navigated and was the guy that was a connector that way. He was a connector. He was a grower of communities, right? Tons of individuals coming back to visit, tons of individuals craving to sort of be in the spaces that he created. They may even say they created to be around him, but if I go straight up, it was more about the spaces he created because then the kids connected with each other. There's this I think it's mentioned in, I forget the author's name. Oh, James Bridle. I forget the name of his current book, but it's mentioned in a couple different places. In his book, he talks about mycelium connections between disparate species of trees. So I'll go a little sciencey here, but it's mentioned in. Do you remember me sharing with you that one podcast that was about kinship? Okay. I'll just go with this. So there are forests of trees, and one of the baseline factors of wellness in these forests where there's mixed species of trees is how their root systems intertwine. And different species of trees need different types of nutrients. They need different types of minerals. They need different types of climate, soil composition, but they can all be in the same, let's say, 1 kilometer, I'll just be arbitrary, 1 kilometer hillside of forest. We say collectively a forest. So we say collectively a school. All these different trees rooted in the same ground. So let's call that pedagogy. We can call it classrooms. We can call it the schedule of the day. There's a lot of stuff that roots us in a school. These trees have a cooperative relationship if there's these mycelium, which are basically it's fungi, mycelium spores that are in the soil. And what happens is as the roots overlap, right? We talk about relationships, interactions. As I'm in math class with you, the mycelium connects the roots. Literally is a node between two roots. In that node, in that node, if tree number one needs more potassium, tree number two that has an excess of potassium just might share it. In these same forests, if tree number one has experienced harm from a fire, or if tree number one is experiencing a infestation of some insect, it'll send a message out through the roots into this node, and disparate species will be able to understand, like, whoa, we better prep. Let's prep up. There's this bug in town that could take us out too. I love this idea. I really love this idea. Um, I mean, it goes off the rails if you're watching The Last of Us right now. The whole thing, because it's similar. I mean, it's not the similar kind of fungus, but we often talk about. I mean, you can Star Trek, just to give you the heads up. One of the Star Trek series talked about the new mycelium warp drive, that ability that you could be anywhere at any time. Dude, this idea is out there, right? So I think I like this idea that schools as a forest have the ability to collectively support each other in invisible, both explicit and implicit ways. But the organic nature has to precede the technical language for me, and sort of be that catalyst and that can connect. I don't know if I just indirectly called myself a fungus, but I mean to be that person that's sort of being able to sort of get these different, very, very different entities to communicate and support each other in an organic way. I love that idea. And this is why I think that building community it's a word, but I feel like it's dated. I feel like it's dated. I feel like we could do better if we explore it a little bit.
I enjoyed your talk, your sciencey talk about the trees. I like that. And
I got a lot in on that, eh? I got a lot in that moment. The coffee's good today.
it
And
I
Rochelle,
like
how's it going? If you're
uh,
still out there, great to hear from you.
hopefully you didn't put her to sleep, but I'm about to wake her up by saying that I appreciated her comment, saying that I'm making a difference in these kids' lives, one that will have a lasting impact. I do want to flip to the other side of that, though, that it's not always kumbaya when I'm meeting with these students. Sometimes I'm pushing back. There have been a couple of, well, more than a couple, where I say to the student, "Hey, look, like, man, you're burning the place down. Do you want to talk about this?" And they pull out their lighter and try to light me on fire too. And that's, I throw my hands up. I'm like, you're in no condition to like talk to anybody today. You know, you're lighting things up in the room, you're lighting things up in the school, you're lighting things up between your friends, you're lighting things up with me. It's not cool. And you know, I push back. Um, but more often than not, and I'm in a different place, right? Like I'm not in a place, Chris, where I'm growing community between kids. That's not that's not my lane right now. If it comes up, great. Let's make it happen, but it doesn't usually come up that way. I'm in a lane where it's one-on-one. You know, I've said more times than not over the past year and a half, I say to these kids, I'm not your classroom teacher, okay? Your classroom teacher, they need different things from you. They ask you to operate in a different way. Their lens is different. So I say that to try to give the student a flavor for perspective and context, right? There is a context. So if you're having an issue, let your teacher know that you need to speak to me before I'm supposed to get here the next time. And I'll make my way in and we can chat. I can coach you. I can just listen. I can pass information on to the school. I can pass information on to your parents, whatever, right? Like I referred to myself once in a meeting as the Swiss Army knife in EDU right now because I'm one person that can do different things depending on what you need at the time. I can. Not always good at it, but I'm like the middle guy. So I it's not always kumbaya. And Rochelle says sometimes tough love is what is needed. Okay, if you want to call it that. Sometimes it's dissent. I say to the kid, no, this isn't cool what you're doing here. It's not cool. You need to change your vector. Even within my relationship with the kid and seeing the difficulties and the layers and the systemic issues, you got to change your vector. You can't. I get it. There's lots of layers, but what you're doing right now is not acceptable. As a human being, it's not acceptable. Look
How
at
am I?
look, and one more thing before you jump in. I've
Yeah,
said to
do it.
kids like, look at what your teacher's doing, bending over backwards for you. Do you understand how difficult that is for them? It's their job. Yeah, I know it's their job, but they're human. Look at how they're bending for you. Don't spit in their face when they do that. Show them some love somehow, some way, however you want to do that. The other day, yesterday, when I was talking to this one kid, his teacher came over to check in with us. And, uh, I I laughed and said that when I came to the room, he was kind of out of it and it was French class. And the French teacher didn't even skip a beat when I walked in. I'm just like, I'm here for, and, I point and the French teacher's like, go nuts. And then I went over to the student and kind of awakened them from their slumber kind of thing, right? And I said in front of the classroom teacher, I'm like, you know how lucky you are to have a classroom teacher just let you do that? Like she doesn't push back. She doesn't use it against you. I'm like, you got to throw her a bone sometimes. So what are you going to do today to fill her cup? Like there is a back and forth, right? And sometimes regardless of the layers, regardless of the systemic issues, regardless of the family life, sometimes you just need to throw somebody a bone. We're doing it for you. Model it for someone else. Okay? It's not a one-way street all the time. So that's what I wanted to say. Sorry, I interrupted you. I hope you still have
Yeah,
what you got going on.
I think a bunch of different things. So you got me wondering about what's the sense, and I don't want to put it as a question. Here's what I'm wondering. What could the impact be on your practice if the kids that you work with, I'm using the example of kid at the front of the class and kid at the back of the class. And those are arbitrary spaces. I just want to put space between those two locales. What would be the impact of the students in your class getting to know each other? So I'm thinking about the collective here. I'm thinking about you as a single node in this community. What would be the complications what would be the awesomeness, and how might it change your approach to the work that you did if it wasn't singular in the way that it was you to the kid, kid back to you. It was you to the group as they navigated their relationships with each other. I've played around a little bit with this with my crew. We did it last year. We built a Google site for, it was kind of like a welcome to KHS website. And we walked around the school, we gathered video, we took photos of the classrooms, we created maps. We used map apps to sort of create maps to be able to get around the school. And it's likely something we're going to build again this year. It's just a cool kind of tool. And then we share the access to that site with the grade 7 and 8 teachers at our feeder schools. And in that process, we also take in, questions from the grade 7s and 8s about the high school. And we kind of have a facts page on there. We have a bunch of different things that we build in there. And I can't say for sure, I don't have the metrics. I don't have the analytics to say, yes, the kids are constantly accessing that. But I feel like that's my toe dip into, how do I no longer make this experience a single trip, a single sort of line of communication between me and my students? How am I sort of stepping back and letting the students talk to other students in a way that's they're helping each other? I get it's in a very technical way. It's in a very EDU way, very safe way, very sort of like accessible way. Hell, I can put numeracy, literacy assessments all over that. I get it. But on the other end, there's a truly humanistic center to it. And all the complications that come out of that. Because then we got into conversations around, I said it would be good if our photos, our pictures, the actual developers were on this website. And then we work through the conversation when kids don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So then we have to talk about the value of actually seeing the humans within. I said, this website is a relationship. They're like, what are you talking about? It's a relationship. Like it's just the bridge that we walk across, but we're actually connecting with humans on the other side. So I always made sure that we were in each other's view, whether or not we actually recognized each other. And they would, often my crew would be like, yeah, but it's for that school that has done this. They have there's harm and foul there for some of the kids. Like, why would I want to make this for them? Nobody did this for me. Like, exactly. So this is how we're kind of growing it. So yeah, as I listen, I'm listening to, how you frame your work, and sort of seeing and reminding individuals of their value to each other. I love it. I like it. I think that those are great reminders. I still wonder about when you were talking about using the video games, sometimes you play on the Switch with the students. I mean, it's tactical, it's social, it's harmonious. It's exactly where the kid is. It can there's so much use there to sort of using that as rapport building. And also the fact that you love video games, you can actually it's a part of you. Like you're actually sharing you in a way that EDU is like, thanks, Roland. You're giving a part of yourself away for free to benefit the moment, but it's really it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing how well it works. I think back I think it was maybe August or September. I did ask you about, because you were talking about, at some point you were talking about the gaming. Like when you came out of the classroom, when you came into this role, you had a crew that was a mixed crew of individuals that were, was it sponsored by Dell, sponsored by Microsoft, something, maybe Dell and Microsoft? Yeah. Am I remembering correctly?
It was Dell for sure.
Yeah. So, but there's that moment of this mixed group of kids all participating kind of in this common goal and the challenges that came along with them producing whatever they did, a game, whatever they did at the end. The coding gaming thing you're part of. And I
Girls
can remember
Who
having
Game.
Girls Who Game. Cool. Good. So I can remember we talked about is there anything of this that can actually come into your practice when you become re-engagement? And I'm bringing it back to the table again, because there is when you talk about the that secret sauce that can actually change, or maybe it's the thing that just seems the impossible thing. It's the impossible thing, but that would be, we talk about transformational within communities. You not being the only connector for these students to the system. What would that be like if through you, the kids that could also, like, it's like they get the benefits of the support, potentially get their feet on the ground and do something, be involved in something that they feel is worthwhile in school, which could be you as the relationship to school, or it could be they finally get back to math class, or it could be they walk through the front door, 2 out of 5 days a week on their own. What would it look like if they actually knew, if they knew that throughout Waterloo Catholic District School Board, there's 50 other kids working through similar challenges. And if they could connect with each other, what would that be like? I don't have to say good or bad, but it's a question. It's a question that I like because I didn't ask it when I was still in alt ed. I just kind of witnessed it. I think I kind of had that seated because the kids that came into me for alt ed really were like every corner of the school, every floor of the school, every possible reason in my classroom. And I never really, and I probably thought about it parallel. The students, when I was doing access, when students were expelled and suspended, you couldn't even have really more disparate connections. Students that were from 5 different high schools likely never had met, all there for like common mindset, right? I would put this one, file it under how is the program restorative? And would it help? Would it benefit some? I keep looking at the wrong spot for my camera. It used to be over here. Now it's like directly in front of me. I keep looking up like I'm looking to connect with you. So I'll look up here. There we go. What would it be like to restore the richness of that relationship and to sort of grow a micro community of the students that you're connecting with?
Well, it is interesting that you say that because it would be cool. I think in some instances it would be inappropriate, unfortunately, due to, I guess, due to the circumstances of certain students and their profile. I think it would might I don't mean to go negative. I'm just saying, like, I'm looking at the situation. I'm like, yeah, for sure. I'm not interested in trying to holistically involve this one kid with the other, how many I'm working with. You get what I mean? Like, it seems dangerous and I don't want to go there, but for sure there are instances where, like, at one school I work at, there are two kids I work with who are in the exact same class, and I've never explicitly said anything about that, which is friggin' hilarious if you think about it. Um, I'll meet with one kid, I send them back, and then I call the classroom and I ask for the next kid. And only recently have the two kids been talking about the other kid in the class that also meets with me. And, you know, from an anal perspective, if I could use that term, I don't want to be the one to connect the dots because I'm the teacher, I'm the professional. I'm not going to be talking about other kids' business with people, right? A kid can say whatever they want. I'm not. But it is interesting to me that in this one situation, it appears as though these two, it might be a good idea to start meeting with the two of them together and trying to normalize the situation by having them converse with each other about whatever they want to talk about. Like, the other day, I was meeting with one of them. Let's call him Bob. Okay. Bob is almost always at school these days. And Evan is the other kid. It's never at school. So the other day, Bob said to me, "Hey, when was the last time you saw Evan?" And I'm like, I'm not sure." And I'm like, "Do you talk to Evan outside of school?" He goes, "Yeah, I've seen him around a couple times out in the neighborhood." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Do you know why he doesn't come?" He's like, "No." I said, "Okay." And then he says to me, "Do you know why Evan doesn't come?" And I laughed. I said, "Well, if I did, I wouldn't be telling you." And then we both laughed. Ha ha ha. Like Chidiak's not going to go there. But recently, Evan's returned to school. And Bob and Evan have made little comments back and forth around the fact that they know that both of them meet with me. So now I think maybe it's time to bring us all together since everybody knows and they're friends, they get along. It would be a great way to say like, okay, you guys are coming together and we're gonna video game. We're gonna have a little tournament. We're gonna see if Mr. C can grab the title from either one of you and make it that way so that we can connect and maybe I can bring them together in a way that would be beneficial to them. But your bigger question, it's cool. I don't I think it would be good in some situations and I think it would be negative in others. So again, it's based on context. But what you're talking about hits a little close to home with my grade 11 student who is struggling with some of the kids in his class who don't want to be part of a they don't want to be growing in community. They want to be in their corner and they want to do what they want to do. And unfortunately, in some situations, it's rubbing my kid the wrong way. So then it's like, it's time to have a conversation with the teacher. Does the teacher even know what's happening in that back corner? Does the teacher know that? Does the teacher, is the teacher aware of the invisible signals that that little group in the back is sending to the rest of the community, which is causing them to shut down? Um, so sometimes teachers don't even have an awareness of the inner workings of their classroom and the community that's in it. They don't even know. It's fascinating. All of this is fascinating.
Mycelium, baby. Mycelium.
Rochelle
Wheels are
says the
turning.
wheels are turning. That's good stuff.
I've become more and more aware this past well, we're always becoming more aware. How about this? Ideas that have popped up for me is just looking at the ways that we intentionally break community with the intent of teaching, right? With the intent of holding the kids accountable to learning. Um, and sometimes, I kind of go, okay, I get it. I get it. I'll give a for instance. I've recently noticed, maybe that's a good way to put it, that whenever the schools that I've been at, there's assemblies, the nines and 11s are together and the 10s and 12s are together. And I don't know why, I kind of just always went on. I'm like, why? Like, I finally asked, I'm like, what's going on there? And the intention there is to break down social relationships, one of the intents, because it's less likely that nines and 11s would be connected, and it's less likely that 10s and 12s would be connected socially. So, what you've done effectively is taken two cohorts and divided them socially. So, I guess there's a belief you have an increased likelihood that people are talking and kind of disrupting an assembly. Now, you kind of on the surface, you go, okay, I get divide and conquer. Again, bureaucratic war term that creeps into EDU every once in a while. But I think the truth in there is that if you have, like, let's say you have 100 kids, 50 in each cohort, do we actually believe that it's all 50 on one cohort talking to another cohort? Or do we just say that there's going to be 10 to 15 within each that are just talking the whole time? I would go with the latter example, that actually dividing the things. I don't get it. But I know this is a thing that is done. Nines and 10s, 11s and 12s. Now, there could be other reasons. I don't know. I'll challenge you, dude, this week. Like, if you get the chance, or if you've ever thought about this, like how are assemblies divided at elementary? Is there an idea? Oh, we talked a little bit about this with the masses going to mass, I think, a couple episodes ago. Um, and there was an experience where there was um one pastor that's like, yeah, we're not. Oh, that's funny. Siri's talking to me. I was holding down the button. I actually thought I stepped on the cat beside me because in the noise canceling headphones, all I could hear was this is Siri in the background. Anyways, I can remember you mentioning that one of the pastors is like, yeah, yo, those JKs, they can't be here. They're too much. They're too much. Um, so I guess I've started to notice where these overwhelming rules for compartmentalization contravene the ability to grow community. Um, and some of them, despite our growing inequity, these are some tools that are like they become canon, right? With the way that's part of the operating system for EDU. And I won't speak to efficacy. I just observe. I'm just observing. If I see it bump up against, like if someone were to say to me, I'm having a hard time connecting with my class and having my class connected with each other. And then I look at their classroom and every single desk is separate. I'm like, well, let's start with the third teacher. You could sort of work on classroom design to increase the likelihood someone would talk to each other, right? So I'm kind of looking for those glaring discrepancies. I'm just like, well, it may feel like it's an impossible thing, but this one small risky change could make a difference in you providing a better opportunity for people to grow with each other. Funny to that end, it's taken me 3 years to learn everyone's name instantly in the school that I'm in. Lots of different reasons. We're all in silos, we're all in pods, we're all in departments. We don't always have overlap. So it's taken about 3 years to where I can at a distance go, that's Bob. That's Evan. I appreciate the breakfast house reference you made on that, Bob Evans. I don't know if you realized you did that.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. As soon as you said, I'm craving sausage and something right now. Some grits. So I recognize within me 3 years. So if it took me 3 years and I'm pretty connected, and I'm pretty intentional about it, that sets a pretty lofty challenge for some teachers, right? Like if it actually takes that long to be that familiar, that clear, that clean at a distance. And this is also understanding, sort of getting the fact when I see Bob walking down the hallway, I recognize more about Bob than just hair color. Because at a distance, all you can do is kind of the gait, like how they walk. All you might be able to know is like, oh, they always carry that satchel, or dude always loves to wear that brown coat. Or you do it by association. I normally know Bob walks with Evan, so I know that's Bob and Evan. But to get all those kind of strings where you're sort of connected, and that's valuable to understand how people relate, and people relate to each other and relate to themselves. It's taken me 3 years to be sort of move comfortably through those networks of people where I feel like I can move from one known to the next known and have fewer moments of free fall between with unknowns, right? And then funny on this, someone said the other day, like, are you looking to transfer yet? I'm like, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it just because I said it, but I also like to go. I like to go to different schools. I like to learn from different places. I'm that guy that willingly transfers, keep myself fresh. But now that I would say it's probably going to take me 3 years at the next place to sort of get to that nice sense of comfort and community and connection I have right now. But I also would say that 3 years means that 10 years from now, when I run into someone from my current learning experience, and they're like, Bob, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a long time. What are you up to? Like, it'll come back. It'll be there. And we did a little bit of that on the on-ramp, talking about like, what was our relationship in the past? What was it really versus what it is now as you sort of move into the future? I'm actually having a lot of things popping up from the past right now, because a lot of my colleagues I started teaching with have retired, and then they become LTOs, like they're doing substitute teaching, and they're popping up at my school. I'm like, "Yo, Marianne, I haven't seen you in a long time." She's like, "Yep, just getting a few shifts here and there. Going to be going traveling soon, so I thought I would, whatever. There's an X number of days you have to work in order to maintain your status." But I've run into four different teachers from the school that I started at back in the day at Williams that have popped up at my school covering classes. But those relationships are there because I would say, the time was spent getting to know each other well.
You know, when you were talking, I was thinking about my my disconnect from classrooms and my craving to be part of a classroom community or a bigger community.
Mhm.
Some teachers really encourage me to be around in their room. So, um, with the one student I met with yesterday, the two students I met with yesterday, sorry, I was telling two different stories. The one student that was telling me about the TV show and was being very careful about it, that teacher doesn't mind me coming in and joking with the other kids and kind of like normalizing me as, hey, it's just Mr. C. Now it just so happens that it's the last school I worked at before I became a re-engagement teacher. So I feel really comfortable going in and out of classrooms there because I know a lot of the kids anyway, but they make it really, they're really well, that teacher's really welcoming and doesn't mind me coming in, like when I come in to get the kid, joking with the other kids and really truly normalizing my presence, right? Because it's either my presence is either normalized or it's, yeah, I'm a novelty. And the novelty doesn't work for the kid that I'm working with because then they're like, something's wrong with this kid if he's got to meet with Mr. C. And I really don't like that. I really don't like that. And then there's other places where they don't want me anywhere near the classroom. And so I just don't go. I'm not welcomed. And I don't mean that like in a boohoo crying way. It's just they would rather I not come in and do that type of thing, which is it's their classroom. That's fine. But I am appreciative um, of the teachers that don't mind at all because then I get to make connections with the other kids. I'm and I like that. I really like that. Um, it's funny at one school, the student I work with is in the student success room all the time. The student doesn't go to class. So when the student arrives at school, they just go to student success and that's where they do their work. If they're in the mood to work, because some days they're not. And there's always the same group of people in that room. And I've come now to, it's kind of funny actually, I've come now to speak to the other students in that room. So I'll walk in, I'm like, hey, hey, good to see you, man. And I'll address this student over here, even though I don't work with them. I know their name, they're always in there. I'm like, yo, I'm going to call this person Laura. Laura, what's going on? And Laura doesn't talk. Like, I think Laura's a selective mute. So, but I talk to Laura 24/7 and I know Laura plays hockey. So I just walk in and just jump right in like, "Hey, you got hockey this weekend?" knowing Laura's not going to respond. So I just answer the questions for myself and I keep asking the questions. It's kind of fun for me, but it's also like, does anybody talk to Laura? Like aside from the spec ed teacher and the EAs, does anybody talk to Laura? And I'm like, Laura's a friggin' human. I'm going to acknowledge Laura. I'm going to acknowledge that Laura plays hockey. My kid plays hockey. I'm just going to tell stories. I don't care if it's a spec ed room, student success room. I don't care what you want to call it. There are kids in that room, and for whatever reason, they're not going to their classroom. Something's broken, something's wrong. I'm going to talk to whoever I can. So I come in, I see my student. Hey, what's going on? Hey, Laura, what's going on? I see you over there. I see you smiling. You like what I'm talking about? I expect no response. The one day I'm in there. So the good thing is when I'm there meeting with my student, the spec ed teacher can leave and go do other stuff because there's somebody supervising the kids in their room. They don't
Mhm.
have to be there. So the one day I came in and it was a friggin' circus, right? Like it was. There was a kid melting down over here. There was a supply teacher trying to do a small group instruction over here. There was my kid off in a corner, not in a good mood. Laura was there, just zip, working on the computer, and I'm sitting there, and all the EAs kind of know me now. They don't. They might not know my name, but they're like, he's here for that kid, so he's normal. It's fine. He's allowed to be in here. This kid walks in the room and says, looks at me and goes, "Are you an EA?" I said, "No, I'm a teacher." "Why?" "We need an EA in my classroom. Jimmy's freaking out. Can we get an EA in my classroom?" And I'm like, uh, when the spec ed teacher comes back, I'll let them know that Jimmy's freaking out, needs an EA. And the kid's like, okay, turns around, walks out. And everybody looks at me. It was funny. They're like, what are you going to do about this? I'm like, well, I can't leave you guys all unattended to go help. So I'll just wait for someone to come back. Somebody comes back. I'm like, Jimmy in this room needs an EA. Okay, so they go. And it's just funny that me trying to be part of the group sometimes throws people off. Like the phone will ring and it's ringing. There's no adult in the room, so I answer, "Hey, Spec Ed," and they're like, "Yeah, can I talk to so and so?" I'm like, "No, so and so's not here." "Well, who's this?" I'm like, "It's Mr. C." Like, who are you? I'm like, "Oh, Mr. Chidiak. I'm working with it." Like, it's hilarious because I'm like, "Yo, what's going on?" And they're like, "Who are you? Why are you answering the phone?
Mhm.
Do you need me to leave a message for someone?" And they're like, "Yeah, please let so." It's just funny that in some places I feel comfortable inserting myself as part of the community and trying to build, trying to grow community within the space I'm in. And then
It's funny. It suggests something different, doesn't it? It like you I think there's a different power to the word. There's a different intention to the word. It feels a little bit more abstract because we're not because build automatically puts us into like tools, concretey kind of things, strategies, but growing something, there's a mystery to it. There's a mystery to it. Like, I don't know. I put tomatoes in the ground in early frost breaks. And no matter the work I do, there's no assurance that actual I increase the likelihood that I'm going to have some tomatoes by end of July, early August. I've also done the exact same thing, and the tomatoes aren't even red yet by September, October, and it's getting too cold. And I basically am throwing out extra green tomatoes because they all decide to pop then. Like, what a metaphor for the system, eh? I'm chucking out tomatoes as the frost is hitting in late October, early November, because I actually don't have the capacity to appreciate the fact that my tomatoes are finally ready. And I got no one else to pick it up, and like I just can't do anything. I can take a bunch and try and pickle them. I can have as many fried green tomatoes as I want, but at some point, I've got a crop that I can't do anything with, so I leave it, and then I start again in September. Like growing is such a. I'm sure we can edu crush it with some terms that make it more manageable, but I do think that that idea of growing something, there's a power there that I just feel like the conversations haven't really given me a clear enough sense like that's important more than building. Buildings you can walk away from. Buildings have stability. Buildings you don't have to pay attention to. Buildings can be automated. Something that's growing, there's you don't start from automation, and you don't start from if you play a part in growing something, you never get to leave it. Again, I'll take it back to your own kids, right? Like that's a relationship that's growing. So
on that note, what did you draw today, Christopher, if anything?
I was just messing. Today was like I'm just messing around. I was thinking collage. So today's about collage.
Oh, cool. Is that a sticker in the middle?
Yeah. Back in the day, I ordered some stickers from Amazon because we're getting so much crap. So that's actually a mailbox sticker. I
Nice.
actually have one on my front door, my house, and I have one in we have a mail doesn't come to our house. We have one of those walk-up mailboxes. Um, so just inside of that, I have one of those stickers on there. And it's actually it's worked more times than not. We still get mail that is So on the actual sticker, it says stop, no junk mail, please. I'm sure we can, if we had another hour or two, we could make an EDU connection. But it also says below it, no leaflets, flyers, circulars, or menus. And then under it says no unaddressed mail. We still get some stuff that's like actually addressed to us, but it says to the resident of. So it makes it past part of the algorithm, but it's helped. So, anyways, I stuck that on the page. I did some painting and some markering, and yeah, just playing with some colors and some composition. I don't know where that'll lead. I don't know if I'm kind of building a skill for later. I used some glue. I stuck some paper to it. Yeah, just messing with something different.
That's cool. It's your creative flow. It's just
That's what it
going.
was. Yeah. See,
That's
I'm
cool.
looking at the wrong spot. Like the camera used to be here. I
I
gotta come
like
back.
it. I think it's like you're being interviewed on like a TV show, and you're looking at the person talking to you. You're not looking directly into the camera as they
Yeah.
sit over here.
I mean, I could just be like that. I could be like this the whole time. You know what, Roland? That's a really good point.
If
I
you,
like what you did.
you'd have to have the mic in front of you though, so
Oh,
that
would
we
I?
could hear well, so that we could hear you
Oh,
better. And
does the audio not get
yeah,
clear? Okay,
it
okay.
shifts. It
Yeah,
shifts.
there is. I don't have it on that ambient. It is directional right now. This one is set to sort of take the info right directly forward. So
I'm just saying it'd be epic if
yeah,
you were just talking to me rather than to the camera recording us talking.
that is true. That is true. All right.
Okay, thanks for all the thought fuel. I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to the book club for men starts this Wednesday. The
I'm
tools.
stoked, man. I'm stoked.
I
I
know
am.
you're ready
Oh,
to explode.
I am. So funny thing, eh? So there's individuals and they're like, "Oh yeah, the book is taking so long. The book is taking so long. The book is taking so long." Okay, I get that. Last night I checked Amazon. I ordered the book. It's coming today. So
Can you put that in the chat?
and and I got a used copy. So it's costing me like $15. It
Bro,
says like new. Now I will say that's $15 more than necessary because I also got the audiobook. I really enjoyed
right.
listening to but dude, is because I wanted to hear Phil's voice. I needed to hear the Stutz voice. Barry
That's all
Michaels
fair.
has what's that?
It's all fair.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, like being in the car and being able to listen to some of the stuff has really helped it congeal for me. And I'm now on my second time through the book, knowing this will probably be my last time reading the book if I know my pattern. And I know that. But if I'm going to now, I'm now okay. I've taken the lessons. I've taken the lessons. Now I need to apply. So I'm going back through specifically monitoring my own cues. Like, okay, that here's the thing I need to work on relative to what Barry Michaels and Phil is telling me to do, what to do. So I like that, and then I'll be able to walk away from the book.
You need to say something in the chat. You just need to say, guys, I picked it up on Amazon. It came instantly. Like,
I gotta have the experience of it arriving though, so I want to make sure because
okay,
it's supposed to arrive later today, and I did just order it last night, and it is a new used copy, and I've
hmm
ordered a couple books like that. But sometimes you find the like new used, and it's not primable, so you get it for dirt cheap, and they say, and it's a $75 delivery charge because it's covered, right? You're like, what? $75? But this was like it was primed, so I didn't actually pay because I pay for Prime. I didn't have to pay extra.
right. I
But I'll
get it.
wait for my experience. I'll wait for my experience. But I will. I'll flex it.
And
Or
I'm hoping the gentlemen, they still come. We
yep.
can still talk because
You and I, regardless, you know what? There's the Wednesday during March break. I ain't here. We're away on a family thing. But if I'm not here the Wednesday or the Thursday, whatever day it flips to. But
right.
I'm looking forward because even you and I, we haven't pushed each other's buttons on it yet. And I'll say flat out, if nobody else is pushing practice with this, like they're not pushing in practice, I know I can rely on you to sort of make the connections that show like there's value to this book, like there's value
Oh,
to sort of like test driving it and not just leaning into the fear, recognizing the fear and using the tools to kind of try and do something. I will say, I'm finding it remarkably similar to some things that we already know about Stoic philosophy. Like, I'm
100%.
I'm hearing the echoes, which isn't it funny how it kind of makes you think like if we use the stuff from the book, like you feel like you're tapping into one of those higher forces, like stuff that people know that I'm just discovering at 51 years of age. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm with you. I'm making those connections and I'm practicing the first tool actually. Um, the name
What's that?
escapes
The
me.
the reversal
Reversal of
of
desire.
yeah, reversal of desire.
I'm,
Lean into
I'm
the fear. That's what it
yeah.
is,
Lean
basically.
into the fear. Obstacles the way. Like
Obstacles the way. I was gonna say, yeah. What's that other one? The one about fate, amor fati, right? Like know that something's going to be thrown at you that you got to deal and expect that it will, and use your. We've said it. We actually were talking about stoic strategies as tools before we hit this book called The Tools. So I think that probably is what. Well, it's like it calls you, right? Like that's it, you're like your experience is invoked when you hear that word. You're like, well, maybe it connects in some way to what I'm already understanding. And the Netflix video, that helped too. Like that helped to kind of like boost. So on to Saturday, bro. On to Saturday.
yeah, man. Have a great day.
You as well.
Thanks. Thanks to all our listeners and watchers today. Rochelle, thanks for commenting. Um, yeah, man, let's hit Saturday and I feel like I'm already pumped, so let's just
Good
keep
start.
going.
Yeah,
Right
man.
on.
Peace to you. Chat you soon.
Have a good one.